Let's take another look at the universe within art and the art within games. This time we're going to be taking a deeper look into the zero-tick kelp farm. You may or may not know, but Mojang has declared war on zero-tick farms in the past, but this one still works in Bedrock. Now because this relies on a bug, it may not work forever, but it has been working successfully for years and years and years, so there's no real threat for it breaking tomorrow. However, if they do ever patch it, I will be sure to let you know by changing the title of the video, posting it in the comments and in the video description, so that you know that it is broken and no longer works. Not only does this farm produce tons and tons of kelp for you to use as a fuel source, but it will also provide you with some experience as well. It's not the best at providing experience, but a little bit will go a long way. The more you let it back up before pulling the items out, the more experience you will get. I just built this thing and I didn't let it back up at all, and even still it got me from level 6 to level 11. It's not the end-all be-all of experience farms, but at least it still provides you with a little bit of XP. And technically, this can also be used as a food farm. You can eat dried kelp. It doesn't provide you very much hunger or very much saturation, but you can eat it faster than any other food in the game. So if you're desperate and don't have any other food sources, you could always use this as a food source. And you can also use this as a bone meal farm. Again, it's not going to be the best bone meal farm, but I do like that you can mix in a few composters so that it just kind of passively provides you with some bone meal while it's providing you with fuel and food and XP. So really this provides 4 things in one. And you could always build a smaller version of this. Depending on how big you make it, here are the materials that you will need. So all of the top row is dependent on how big you make it. If you build this full-sized version, these are exact quantities, but you could always make it smaller. And then the bottom row is stuff you will need no matter how big you make it. And then the blocks in the middle is just glass, building blocks of your choice, water buckets, and kelp. And this farm needs to be chunk aligned or it will break occasionally. But on Bedrock, you can find chunk borders super duper easy just by pulling up your calculator. Just go to where you want to build it and type in your coordinates into a calculator, so in this case 726, then divide that by 16, and we only care about the whole number, so we take 45 and then multiply 45 by 16, and that gives us one chunk border. So we have one chunk border at 720, and then we subtract 1 from that number. So we have another chunk border at 719. So I'm going to go to 720 and 719 and just place a block in the ground, marking the 2 different chunk borders. So we have one chunk border here on 720 and one chunk border here at 719. Then we just need to do the same thing for the other coordinate. Now if your coordinates are negative, just ignore that for now. So we're going to take 729, divide that by 16, take the whole number, and then multiply that by 16. And we will end up with 720 again. But this time it's negative because these coordinates are negative. So when you go to subtract one number from the 720, just remember that it's negative. So it technically goes up by one number rather than down. Because if you subtract from a negative number, it looks like it increases. So this chunk border is at negative 720 and at negative 721. So I'm going to place a block at negative 720 and negative 721. And now we just need to line all of these blocks up into a little square. So right here is where they all line up. So we're going to place 4 blocks right there and then get rid of our old markers. And these 4 blocks will represent 4 different chunks. Each block is the corner of a different chunk. So whichever one you want to build this in, start off by counting 15 away from the block so that you end up with a line of 16 blocks. A chunk is 16 by 16. So we just need to make a square that is 16 by 16 that has the corner of one of these 4 blocks. So again, we're going to count out 15 away from that block so that we end up with a line of 16, and then we're just going to connect these 2 lines together so that we're left with a square that is 16 by 16. And so this is one chunk. So everything in this farm needs to be inside of this area so that it is unloaded and loaded at the exact same time anytime the player leaves or comes back. And once you have your chunk measured out, it's time to start building. So this farm isn't very deep, so just somewhere in the middle, it doesn't really matter. We're going to count out 3 blocks from the left. Then we're going to place a block, and then blocks diagonally up from that block so that we're left with this pattern right here. We're going to place a redstone torch on the front side of the bottom block, a repeater facing the back block, and then a redstone dust underneath that, and this is a clock. Now we're going to place a lever on the front side and flip it to turn it off. So where this lever is the front of the machine. Now we're going to place smokers diagonally down from that lever, and we're going to place 12 of them going all the way across, so they should stop 1 away from the chunk border wall. And you could always place less smokers if you want this farm to be smaller. It doesn't really matter how many you place as long as they are all within this chunk. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to dig out these 2 blocks and place a double chest. And so this is where all your kelp is going to go. So really quick, we need to dig out all of the blocks underneath these smokers so that we can place hoppers going into that chest underneath all of these smokers. Make sure that all of the hoppers are pointed into each other so that it can drain all of the kelp into that chest. And then we can fill back in this hole if you want to. If you don't want to fill in the hole, that's totally fine as well. You could always just place stairs or slabs or nothing in there. Next up, we're going to place hoppers into the top of all of these smokers. So make sure that all of the hoppers are going down into the smokers. Then we're going to place double chests on top of all of those hoppers. And then we're going to place hoppers going into the back of all of those chests. And technically, you don't have to use chests. You can use any sort of container that you want to, just so long that there's hoppers going into that container and then coming out of that container. But then we're going to come around to the back. And in this topmost block, we're going to go back by 1 and then up by 1. And then we're going to come over from the bottom block all the way across to be aligned with your smokers. And then we're going to place another line of solid blocks behind the smokers, going all the way across, like so. Then we're going to grab our sticky pistons, and we're going to place sticky pistons facing the front, coming off of these back line of blocks. So like this. Make sure they're facing the front, and that one will activate because it's receiving a redstone signal. But that's okay, because now we're going to place redstone dust all along the back, and then along these 2 blocks right here, which should then turn on all of these sticky pistons. Then next up, we need to grab our sand, and we're going to place sand underneath all of these hoppers right here, so that the sand is being held by these sticky pistons, like so. Then we're going to place another line of sand on top of the wooden part of the sticky pistons, right behind the top hoppers, like so. Now on top of the pistons, we're going to place 2 solid blocks on top of each piston. So we're going to place 1 row and then another row of solid blocks, and then we're going to grab our normal pistons and place our normal pistons on top of these blocks facing the front. Make sure they are facing the front. And then we need to surround these pistons with solid blocks. So place 1 on the side, and then a line on the back, and then another one on the other side, and then a line on the top. We're going to be flooding those pistons, so we don't want water to come out of the sides or out of the back. But then we're going to place upper half slabs on these very top row of blocks. Make sure that they are upper half slabs and not lower half slabs. And then we're going to come around to the back and we're going to place all the redstone. So we're going to start off by placing a redstone torch on the side of this block that sticks up with a block above that torch, and then another torch on the side of that block with another block above that torch. Then we're going to switch sides, place a redstone torch on the other side with a block above that torch, and then 1 last block right here. Then we're going to place dust coming out of that block all the way across. Then we're going to place another line of dust going up here and then on top of all of the slabs. And I'll explain how all of that works at the end of the video, so if you're curious about how it works, stay tuned till the end. But then next up, we need to place a line of glass blocks on top of these chests, and then we just need to fill in all of the sides. So technically, for filling in the sides, you don't have to use glass. The only line that has to be glass is the line on top of the chests, just so that you can still open the chest if you ever need to. Now, right here on this side, we want to not fill in this hole right here. So we're just going to build up with our wall right there and leave this hole, so that we can dig out 1 block underneath these pistons so that we can place scaffolding right here going all the way up. So this scaffolding will hold in the water while still allowing you to access the farm, but then also allow you to get down here. So dig out a line of blocks all the way across, because sometimes if this farm breaks, the sand will fall down to the bottom and you'll have to go in and break that sand. And so it's just nice to have a little access point for the underneath section and for this top section right here. So now we just need to place our water buckets. So we're going to start off by flooding all of the pistons. Be sure that every single piston gets a bucket of water. Then we're going to place buckets of water along the very bottom row of blocks just above the sand, not above the hoppers. And then we're going to flood every single half slab with a bucket of water as well, and then we'll be done placing our water. So just make sure that every piston, every slab, and then every one of the bottom blocks above the sand has a bucket of water, but nothing on the hopper side. And now all that's left is to plant our kelp. So go in here and plant your kelp on every single sand block, and now you are done. Now when you flip the lever, it should start growing kelp. But don't click away yet, there's a few things we need to go over to make sure the farm doesn't break. First of all, you will need to load a little bit of fuel just to get it started. In order for you to get your dried kelp blocks, you will need, some lava or some sticks or some bamboo or some coal, just to make a few dried kelp to begin with. But once it starts producing dried kelp, you can then craft those dried kelp into dried kelp blocks and use those as fuel both for itself or for your other furnace needs. That is one nice thing about this farm is that it ends up fueling itself. You will need a crafting table nearby so that you can actually turn the dried kelp into dried kelp blocks, to use as fuel. The dried kelp blocks are much, much better fuel sources than regular dried kelp or any of that stuff. So once you get a few dried kelp blocks, just throw those into these smokers so that it's sustaining itself. But then next up, if you want to gain some experience from this farm, you can just throw levers on the front side of all of the smokers. Then while it's smelting, you can flick the lever to lock the hoppers so that you can actually pull the items out of the smoker itself. And the more items that you let build up before pulling them out, the more experience that you will receive. Now, if you ever notice that your kelp has stopped growing, this is really easy to fix. You simply go in, break the kelp, and replace it. But these flooded pistons should help prevent that from happening. Sometimes kelp just decides to stop growing, but having the flooded piston reduces the probability of that happening. So maybe you will have this problem and maybe you won't. Hopefully you won't, but if you do, you just break the kelp and replace it. Now, another thing to mention, this is really, really important. While the farm is running, do not quit, do not go through the nether, do not go through a portal, and do not go outside of simulation distance away from this farm. If you leave the area at all while this farm is running, it will implode. These zero-tick farms do not like to be unloaded while they are running. Either all of the sand will break, or all of the sand will fall through down to the bottom. Luckily, this is really easy to fix and reset. So basically the reason this happens is that the sand gets confused on where it goes, so sometimes it will break, or other times it will fall down here. If it falls down here, just come in and break it all so that it's no longer down here, and then you just need to replace all the sand. So basically the way zero-ticking works is that you're using gravity to kind of trick the game into updating the block that the plant is placed on. But because you're abusing a bug using gravity, if you leave or something, sometimes the gravity will, fall and it'll break all the blocks. But to reset it, all you have to do is replace the sand behind these hoppers right here, and then replace the sand that the kelp is growing on. And then of course replant your kelp and it will be good as new. Now this will probably happen to all of you, even if you're really careful about not leaving the area. Maybe you lag out or maybe your power shuts off or something. Luckily, all you have to do is replace all the sand and it will be good as new. Now, this top redstone on top of the slabs looks like it's not doing anything, but it's actually updating the water. It updating the water is what allows the kelp to grow. And the reason we need exactly 3 redstone torches, no more or less, is because of the timing in between the pistons. I tried several different things, including repeaters and stuff like that, and it just didn't seem like anything else worked except for having 3 redstone torches. And the last thing we'll talk about is something I almost forgot, and that is that you can switch these smokers for composters to produce some bone meal. Now, if you want to just use this as a bone meal farm, don't do it. There are way better bone meal farms, such as a moss farm or the nether platform flower mushroom farm thing, where you get the nether plants. But if you just switch out some of these smokers with composters, this will passively produce a small amount of bone meal while it's still producing your kelp and stuff like that. So I like having a few composters mixed in there, just so that you're passively gaining a little bit of bone meal on top of gaining fuel and food and experience and all that stuff. But that's all we got for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or requests, feel free to ask me in the comments and I will do my best to help you out. And be sure to leave a comment regardless. Even if you don't know what to say, just tell me hi. Comments are super duper important and they make me super happy. And tell me how you decided to use this. If you just built a small version or if you built the full size, if you like the bone meal, if you don't, just tell me what you're doing in your own worlds. I would love to hear from you. But again, if you like this video, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe, and check the video description for a link to my Discord. You can join that Minecraft community to share pictures of your builds, find other players to play with, talk to me about redstone, or anything Minecraft related that you would like to do. And a big shout out to all of my subscribers. It is because of all of you that I can keep making these videos and why I'm getting closer and closer each day to monetization. I love you all and I really appreciate all of your support. You know, I make these videos just to try to help people out, so if you ever have any Minecraft questions whatsoever, just let me know and I will do my best to help you out. You know, if I don't know the answer, I will do some research to try to find it for you, and if I do know the answer, hopefully I can word it in a way that you can understand. I really hope you come back to see me next time, but until then, I've been your host, OmLedu, hopefully teaching you a redstone trick or two, and reminding you, as always, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye.